Rolling.
Husker fans, Sam McKewon along with Jimmy Watkins from the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra. This is our practice report after Wednesday. Contrasting tones today from offensive coordinator Mark Whipple and defensive coordinator Eric Chinander. Whipple was fairly upbeat after Nebraska's 31-28 loss to Northwestern. He was more encouraged than discouraged. We'll get to him in a minute. But we'll start with Eric Chinander, who I thought, Jimmy, was pretty despondent. Like he seemed almost like responsible. He felt responsible for the Huskers' loss. He gave up more than 500 yards and 31 points to a team. Maybe you feel that way. It struck me that he felt like there was a lot to fix and that he needed to fix it right away.
He started up at the top by saying that's just not up to our standard. Even when reporters tried to, throw a few bones his way, hey, you had some linebacker injuries weren't out there, some stuff you hadn't seen before. He was shrugging it all off. The stuff about Ernest Hausman being a freshman, he didn't care about that. Doesn't matter. It's not up to our standard. Doesn't matter who's out there. The part about the defensive line rotations, he took full responsibility for that. Although it was a longer game than they anticipated, more plays than they anticipated. And I think the main thing was just the scheme stuff. I think one of the most lasting moments from that press conference was when someone asked about the busted coverage between Marquise Buford and Omar Brown on the long touchdown, and Chinander was just kind of, I don't know what happened. It was a formation they hadn't seen before. They did correct it. He said that Northwestern ran the same play later on, and it did not result in a touchdown. But when the defensive coordinator, 3 days removed from the game, having watched all the film, still can't tell you or isn't telling you what happened there, that stands out to me, Sam.
Yeah, I think he's absolving blame from Brown, who I think that might have been his first or second play in the game. So I think that's probably part of what was going on there. As it related to, I asked specifically about the nickels, and I'm just telling you, they didn't play that badly, but Northwestern tried to put those guys in conflict quite a bit. And if you don't get a pass rush, if your edge rushers don't get around their guys and put some heat on that quarterback, North Dakota, even though they may not be as good as Northwestern, is going to roll their quarterback out all day long and do the exact same thing to those nickels. And it was notable that he's like, hey, JoJo Domann, who just made the Colts NFL roster, by the way, made a lot of things happen when he was here. Some of it wasn't always good because, frankly, he freelanced. But he made a lot of things happen, and I was struck by the nickel play on Saturday.
I was also struck by the newness of the secondary. Guys like Tommy Hill played really well.
He did.
Guys in the back end, Marquise Buford missed an open field tackle. Omar Brown, as previously mentioned, had the busted coverage responsibility. And to the point about tackling, I thought that it was interesting that Chinander said that it was better than expected, I think, compared to what the initial reaction was. Maybe a few high-profile missed tackles in the open field, but it's certainly something that needs to be cleaned up going forward. And like you said, Sam, the contrast between Mark Whipple, who I think probably had more reasons to be optimistic. His team did score 28 points, 4 legit touchdown drives, over 400 yards in the first 3 quarters, and Chinander, you wouldn't have anticipated that, given that one guy's the new guy, and the other guy has had all this time to build this culture that's supposed to be self-sustaining. I think that's another interesting contrast within the contrast.
Well, one guy's for hire, right? And he used to be a head coach, and Mark Whipple's here, and he could go somewhere else. And this is toward the end of his career, and he's just here. This is the first game that he coached, and Chinander's been through this way too many times. So I think that probably has something to do with it. Whipple, let's talk him for a little bit. He was pretty upbeat, I would say. He was more encouraged than discouraged. Said the team had to finish, that they didn't play well in the fourth quarter, that they played well for 3 quarters. I think that's relatively accurate. He said that, they threw the ball around the yard pretty well. They need to get better in the run game. They need more explosive runs. All things that we saw. He talked about converting on third down. Nebraska was terrific on third down for 2.5 quarters, and then they stunk toward the end. My impression of it is that Northwestern just kind of started to figure out what Nebraska was doing late in the game, and they didn't have a curveball because they couldn't run the ball. And so I think they're going to have to move forward. They're going to have to find some new ways to make plays. Whipple kind of shrugged and laughed when I asked him about the creative comedy. He's like, I like you guys, but I don't read you guys. So apparently he didn't know that Scott Frost said that. I don't know if that's true, but
I know that it's not true. Come on.
He's gonna. We'll see.
It's a borderline dereliction of duty to not know what your head coach is saying after the game.
I think that's fair. And so I think overall it was I think he feels like they're not far away from where they want to be, but there's still question marks about running the ball, how they're going to use quarterbacks. Whipple kind of brushes that stuff off. He's a confident guy, maybe even a tad arrogant, which you're going to find with a lot of offensive play callers. And so, yeah, I mean, it didn't seem like this game was on him. As much as we talked about the play calling on Tuesday, it didn't feel like today that Whipple was like,
Well, that's what happens when your head coach maybe sort of kind of calls out the play calling after the game, right? Like you said, Whipple shrugged a lot of that stuff off. I asked him directly about the quarterback run stuff, because that has been, when Scott has run into run game issues in the past, that has been his crutch to lean on every time. They used Logan Smothers for one very random fourth quarter play.
And then he was out. It was a pinch run,
right.
Literally.
Produced, by the way, what, a 7-yard gain plus a 15-yard face mask.
One play.
Maybe put that one back in the slot, and higher in the queue even, perhaps. Whipple did say that they'll continue to do that. I think they had 2 designed run plays, one for the Smothers play and then the Thompson touchdown run. He even mentioned that there's stuff in there for Chubba Purdy to do stuff like that. So it's still lingering in the back of his mind, but to Sam's point, he's a confident dude. To a certain extent, he's earned that confidence due to his long career. How about that? Due to his long career. Due to his long career and the fact that this loss wasn't on him. If you're sitting in Whipple's chair, you just orchestrated 28 points, 4 touchdown drives, 400 yards in 3 quarters. We're sitting here talking about play calling. You could see how maybe that would grind his gears a little bit.
Well, they didn't win the game. Even
Sure.
the folding chairs here are skeptical about Nebraska football going forward. For Jimmy Watkins, I'm Sam McKewon at the Omaha World-Herald and HuskerExtra.com. Keep track of all of our coverage this week as we preview Nebraska, North Dakota.